This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers.
Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. This is episode 29. Well, I skipped out a week. I know y'all missed me. I know it was hard to get through that extra week without me, but I'm back. My apologies. Had a lot of stuff going on, more than what I thought I would be having. So, it was best to not try to rush and get in. I actually took my equipment with me to try to do a little, short episode that I could post, but it was just too much going on. So, for those of you who don't know, I went back home to Dallas over the past weekend. I was going to scout an event. Well, not really scout it, but I was there to partake and look at the event because it's something that I want to try to bring, here to the city of El Paso. It was called Swin City Pro League. Now, most big cities at some time or another will have what they call a pro league. And what is a pro league? It's basically a league where, you have semi-pros, sometimes professional athletes show up and they play in these games. It's like a regular league, but it's only catering to athletes who are, some will allow, college players, some will allow highly touted high school players, but that depends because high school players, it's a little bit tricky, as well as college players, it's a little bit tricky because of all the rules and regulations. But sometimes they'll make exceptions for games and stuff. But a lot of times you'll have NBA players drop in and play in these games, and it's they're not exhibitions. I mean, they're playing, but it's really cool to see high level talent play in these events. So shout out to Tony Swindle of Swin City for putting on the Swin City Pro League event back in Dallas. So I enjoyed it. It was an event. I got to see a little bit of family. For those of you who I didn't get to see, some of them listen to the podcast. It was a business trip. I did want to go and visit everybody I could, but it wasn't possible with the amount of time and then having to drive and get back. So hopefully I will look to get back up there again to visit because I love visiting. Now I tell you, I had to rent a vehicle, and I shout out to my man Mark Gonzalez of Viva Nissan for putting me in a really nice vehicle and allowing me to rent a vehicle from that company. Mark is a kid that we used to train, so I do, as a local business. I although I don't feel like a local business, I feel like a national business, but I'm a local business. I always try to support local. Now, I know you hear that a lot. Obviously, as consumers, we look for deals, and if you're gonna save a ton of money, oh God, I sound like the Geico commercial. I'm gonna save a ton of money. If you're gonna save a ton of money, then it makes sense. So every individual consumer, you have to go with your needs, what your finances dictate to you when you're making choices. As a business, this was a business thing. I looked at the numbers to see what I'm getting, and they provided me with a really great price. So I'll continue to look at supporting their business and stuff, and I invite you to take a look. It's nothing wrong. When I work with the city, I learned about looking into 3 to 5 businesses or offers. So let me give you an example. If I'm going to buy something from an auto store, I want to look at 2 to 3 auto stores and compare prices, right? Just to see where I'm at and then make a decision. I learned long ago, if you just went to the first place and bought whatever it was, unless that's your place that you always deal with, you could sometimes be missing the deal. Now, I don't mean, shop comparison, going back, say, hey, they're going to give me this price. Hey, they're going to give me a price, trying to make them drop it, just to kind of make sure that you don't pay, something absurd for something that you could have, shopped around and got a good price for. So, I tend to try to do that, and I recommend people do that. It helps you become a smarter shopper. It really does. I mean, I feel like I'm not the smartest shopper, but I feel like I'm a lot smarter now than what I was, a while ago. But, in case, if it's something like, for instance, I bought it's called Tahitian Treat. It's a soda, right? And it's something that I grew up on. Oh, of course it's bad for you. Yeah, it's all that sugar and sweet and syrup and stuff is bad, but I got to indulge in some bad every once in a while. I know my doctor's going to get on my butt when I go to my next visit, but I'm just going to say, man, I'm sorry. I was at home visiting and the Tahitian Treat was calling me. I ain't had Tahitian Treat in like over a decade. So, unless the Tahitian Treat was like $20 and I was like, so, I'm going to go ahead and get a 2-liter Tahitian Treat for $20. But for the most part, you want to shop around. So, I shopped around and I got the deal with them. Now, here's the funny part. Normally when you rent a car, and it is so funny because when people tend to rent vehicles, and this is what I hear from the rental car places, that, that people just go buck wild, man. They drive the cars a lot faster. They dirty them. They don't take care of them and stuff. I'm real cautious because I don't want to be charged something, for something extra. So, all right, so I get the vehicle and, I walk, I like to do the walk around with the agent, to check off if there are any dents and stuff like that, because sometimes when people turn vehicles in, they don't always do the once overs. So there could be a small dent or scratch or something that's important and they don't look. Then you take that vehicle, when you bring it back, that scratch is there and they're charging you for it. So I always do the once over. Now, you know what? Give me that form. I know you said it's in great condition, but I need to check. I need to see it for my own eyes, and I encourage you to do it. Even if they say, hey, well, I checked, to say, yeah, you know what? But I need to make sure, because if something happens, I got to pay for it. You don't. So, I was going to do the once over and everything. And he had gave me the keys and stuff. We talked for a minute and then he went in and then I was like, oh shit, I forgot to do the once over. So I go and do the once over, but it's like, I'm looking at the car and I was like, man, this thing look brand new. Right. So I go and do the once over, look inside. It's like real pristine. I'm looking at certain parts of the car and I'm noticing plastic and stuff is still kind of on it. I was like, man, this is like new. So I'm sitting in the car and I message him and say, I forgot to do the once over with you. But I went ahead and did it. And he sent the laugh. He's like, oh no, I did all that. He's like, it's a new car. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm laughing and I'm thinking like, yeah, okay, I know it's new. It's been, maybe rented. I looked at the mileage. I think it had like 20 miles on it. So when I say it was new, it was like brand spanking new. Like nobody had really drove it. So now I'm in paranoid mode because it's like, if you take a vehicle that has some miles on it, it's a little bit dirtier. Even if it's new, it might look a little rough around the edges, right? So you're not as worried about if there's a scuff mark or something because it's new, but it's not new. Yo, there was no fingerprints or anything on this vehicle, man. So I'm like, if anything happens, they gonna know it's me. So I am paranoid driving it, right? I mean, it took me a while, and it was a nice vehicle. I really liked the vehicle. It was a Nissan Altima. Really liked it. It was a brand new one, so like brand new. So I got the vehicle. I'm driving it and everything, Man, I'm like cautious of everything. I'm like my spider senses are going out the roof because I don't want to be next to no car. I don't want to be behind no 18-wheeler, no dump trucks that have rocks, because all I could visualize was a dent in the vehicle or cracking the window, right? And then what makes it even worse is, you when you travel abroad, you hit bugs. I don't know what the hell these guys. These had to be hood flies or something. They were hood flies or mosquitoes. Cause when I was hitting them, I was swearing that they were rocks. I was like, damn, what the hell is that? And I'm like, oh man, some kind of rocks are flying, but there were no vehicles, right? And then there was little spots of blood, and I was like, that's got to be like flies or something. They're like, man, they got to be from the hood, or they got some Teflon vest or something on, because they were really knocking on the window, right? So I get there, I'm putting in good gas and everything, I'm taking care of it, wiping the window, and I'm at home, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, Saturday is the event. I'm going to the event. Well, on Friday they're talking about there's going to be these really bad storms that come through on Saturday, and it's going to bring tons of hail and everything. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, damn, no hail. And all I can picture is the car getting pelted with hail, and then I'm having to take it back and do the walk around with the dude and be like, yeah, man, everything was fine. You sure those weren't there before? So I go to the event because of where the storm was going to be. It was going to come through that where we were. And I'm like, man, okay, I'm going to have to park under a tree, right? So I parked under a tree. So I didn't park kind of close. I was searching for a tree to park under, and I found a tree. And I was like, man, I sure am parked a little bit far away. And then I look around, and everybody else is parking under these trees, and everybody's kind of looking at each other like, oh, like, yeah, you heard the weather alert too. So we're out parking far under trees to try to make sure we don't, get hail. Well, it formed, but it formed just south of us. I mean, I would say about 20 miles south of us is where it started forming, and they got all of that. So, I hope everybody was okay. Obviously, I wouldn't want to wish that somebody had hail damage and stuff, but needless to say, this car didn't get damaged. So I was excited. I drive back the next day. When I get home, as I'm getting home, my mom's messaged me and say, it's good that you left today because it is absolutely really bad up here with the rain. Now, the people on the weather people said that there was a chance for it to come through the next day. But the previous day, it was supposed to be like apocalyptic. Nothing happened in the Dallas area. It was a little bit south. The next day, when it was a little chance of doing it, they got slammed. Even I believe I saw in the news, it was Flower Mound. It was either baseball or softball size hail. Yo, y'all ain't really, if you're not from a city where you get really bad thunderstorms, I don't think you understand what it sounds like to have golf ball, baseball, or softball size hail hitting your house, hitting your car. I've experienced it. I wasn't in a vehicle when I experienced it. I was in the house, and it sounded like people were hitting the windows and the roof with sledgehammers. That shit is scary, man. It imagine having to go out and say, oh, damn, I left my keys in the car, and you have to run out to get your keys or something. Nah, I'm not doing that, because this is ice. This isn't like, soft snow that hits you and it puffs. No, this is kind of ice that can give you a concussion or worse, kill you, right? So I was fortunate to avoid all of that. Got home, got everything taken care of, got the car back. And then there's like what little crumbs I had, because I don't, I try to take care of the car and clean it and stuff, but I'm like, damn, like this is brand new. I can't say I brought it back new because it's not brand new. So I'm trying to make sure any fingerprints and any dust and stuff I'm wiping off. And I'm like, damn, I hope he don't charge me for it being a little dusty and everything. But no, everything went well. I avoided hailstorms, so I feel people when you obviously if it's your vehicle, it's different. You got insurance, but when you're renting a vehicle, you have coverage and stuff that takes care of it. But the the rental companies tend to want to get things done fast and stuff. So you might have to come out of pocket. So, man, that was stressful. But needless to say, it went well. I enjoyed everything, and I got back, and I might need to try to plan around when I go to these places, cause make sure that's not their storm active season. Or if I get a car, tell them, hey man, I don't need a brand new car. Give me something that has 10, 15,000 miles at least, so I know it's been driven a little bit. The brand new cars make me nervous. Everywhere I went, people looking like, yo man, that car is nice. Like, watch your back. I'm like, oh damn, I gotta watch this. So, but needless to say, everything went well. Here's some other things on my mind. I was had a person who was talking about they were in college, they were playing, and they were gonna end up with a medical red shirt. So what that means, if you're in college. Red shirt is when the school can extend your years of playing for whatever reason. Maybe if you come in as a freshman, they can just red shirt you, which means they're not going to play you, but it doesn't count against your years of playing. So you would still have all your years of eligibility. It could mean that maybe they have a full roster, whatever they deem it is. There are ways around doing it they have to put in. Now, medical red shirt is if somebody, let's say you get an ACL tear or a season-ending injury, and if it's at the beginning, sometimes at the middle, what they can do is give you another full year to replace it, so you don't use that years of eligibility. I started thinking, I know it's difficult, but it would be cool if high schools had that, where you wouldn't lose a year of eligibility. And the reason I got to think about that is, okay, so I look at my situation. My junior year at Lincoln, I get in, and obviously Lincoln wins the state championship. I'm not able to play because my other school, my other coach called and complained that I transferred, even though he didn't want me on his team, right? He didn't want me to play varsity for him. So then when I made the decision to move to a school that I knew wanted me, he complained. That's just that's for another episode totally. That's just weird. But needless to say, my senior year, we're picked to, I don't know if I've told the story, but we're picked to repeat. Took me a while to adjust and everything. Now we're rolling. We're rolling, man. We are really rolling. I tear my ACL in December, right? So, we don't make state, and, they're friends of mine, people, man, if you hadn't got hurt, we want, okay, I get all that. I appreciate it, but it was excruciatingly hard to deal with as somebody who likes to compete. I wonder if I could have gotten a red shirt year. There are thousands upon thousands of players that get Achilles tear or ACL tear. So, baseball players, something wrong with their shoulder, and they miss a whole full year. Wouldn't it be nice if these players could get a redshirt year to where, because, okay, if you're a freshman, then look, if it happens in any, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, yeah, it's going to be hard, and I'm not, discounting it. But when you have an injury that happens your senior year, and you miss your senior year because of that injury, that's devastating. That takes away any opportunity for you to really see what your value could be and what other people could see what your value would be. So imagine if you could do a medical red shirt. I would love it. I would love it. Now, how they would work it out, I don't know, because you can't have somebody, 30 years old still in high school trying to play his senior year. Obviously, that don't work. But I think there's a way to try to do something to where a person still has an opportunity to play. I don't know how, because as I was thinking about this, I was like, I don't think it's just hard to do it. College, I mean, you could take the same approach as college, but I don't know how that would work. But I think it would be a cool idea if kids could get a medical red shirt. And I would say it maybe if you only do it their senior year, you know, their senior year they're able to come back and repeat it and finish it. But you know, you graduating twice, or you know, how does that work? You walk twice or something? I don't know. It'd be a lot, but I think it would just be cool to come up with a concept to fix that, because it, you know, I suffered for it, and I know tons of kids that have went through it, you know, and it's devastating to not have an opportunity to play. And you know, I remember distinctly, man, I had colleges calling my grandmama's house, you know, and they were calling, and I was talking to them and stuff. Shoot, boy, once it was like as soon as I got injured, like by the time I got home, I mean not home that day because obviously it took a while, but it was like it sent shockwaves because nobody called. None of those coaches called me again. You know, like, oh, he has ACL. You know, and to me it was kind of, I get it, but to me it was kind of messed up. Like, you know, you could have at least called and said, hey, you know, we heard what happened. We don't know if we can, you know, do something for you, but like in the future, if things get better, you know, give us a call, or we'll, you know, whatever it is. But like to call you and be asking you about everything, like we're really cool, and then next day you find out you're hurt and your season done, you don't get no phone calls. It was like the well dried up. I kept picking the phone up thinking that the phone bill wasn't paid. And every time I hang the phone up, I was worried that I didn't hang it up right. So I pick it up to make sure that I hung it up right, you know. But nah, it was a tough thing to go through. So I really wish, you know, something could happen to help it out. Okay, let's get into NBA Finals. Denver wins the NBA Finals. Joker, you know, congrats to him. Congrats to Denver. There was definitely some players that I was happy to see get a ring. Definitely Malone and stuff like Mike Malone, which is the coach. But okay, so no buts. Joker gets his praise. He wins the finals. He had a really good playoff as well as the finals. He gets the praise. I don't think he's going to be the star that people want him to be. And it's weird because it seems to be a narrative of really trying to push the Joker, you know, how good he is and everything on everybody. And I see it because I noticed when some other stars were at their height, they weren't getting pushed. That narrative and stuff wasn't being pushed upon. You know, they're a dominant player and everything. But with the Joker, they're really trying to push that narrative. And, you know, some people have thoughts as to why it is. But he's not, I don't think he's going to be the star that people want him to be because he's not a superstar personality. He doesn't like the limelight. He's kind of grumpy. He doesn't seem like he wants to be there, you know, and everything. When you talk to him, but he's an exceptional player. He's an exceptional player. Now, with saying that, you know, you get one. Now, if you don't get back again and win one, Jordan once said, you know, anybody could look up and win a finals. But to show that how good you are, you need to win 2, 3, or more, you know. And if you look at the history, ever since the 80s, it's really been like 4 or 5 teams that have won the NBA Finals. It's usually been Boston. It was Boston, the Lakers, Detroit won 3. Then you had the Bulls to win. You had San Antonio. You had Golden State that have won multiple NBA championships. You've had some teams that won one, you know, here and there. I think Toronto won one. I'm trying to think of somebody else that won one and then you didn't hear from again. I know the 2004 Pistons won and then you didn't hear from them again. Miami's won multiples. But, you know, everybody always says, you know, when you're in your run, you know, trying to win championships, there's usually some luck that needs to be involved. I'll say this. I don't want it to diminish, but okay, as dominant as Denver was, I never felt like they got tested by a good team. Now here's why I say that. Okay, they beat the 8 seeded Minnesota Timberwolves, who's just a mind-boggling team in themselves. Unless they make changes, unless they do some things, and I know people like, oh man, you one of these dudes who just get on here and talk. Say, nah, man, I'm watching the film and watching the game, and they do some dumb stuff. And when you have people who've played the game who analyze and talk about it, they say the same thing. I don't understand, and they have a talent, but okay, they beat Minnesota. Minnesota didn't really have any threats shooter wise, and they do some dumb stuff. Okay, now they had Gobert, who used to be defensive player of the year, but yo man, he don't provide much, man. He's a big body, he don't provide much, and you could see it. Like to me, he seems to be questionable with his, IQ when it comes to stuff, but ball IQ rather, so then they play Phoenix. Okay. The Phoenix was a 4 seed, right? Okay. Pretty good, but they were almost already a 4 seed. They were pretty much up there. And that 4 seed was pretty much predicated on what they had did prior to the Kevin Durant trade. Right, I think they might have been 4, 5, or 6 at one point, but all of those games were like separated by a game or two. You could be the 2nd seed, lose, and drop to the 6th seed. So they were within a game, but that team had no bench. So even if Kevin Durant and Devin Booker had 50 apiece, you weren't beating them. So that was pretty much a given, right? Then they play the 7th seed, which is the Lakers, which were, the best team defensively, since the playoffs. Man, if you look through a lot of those teams they were playing and everything, they were good defensively. But a lot of times, okay, they beat Golden State, but Golden State was a hot mess because those guys were internally stuff going on. Clay, wasn't playing the way he should have been playing. You had the bench who weren't doing what they think. So, but Lakers beat them. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm making excuses. I'm saying Lakers beat them. At the same time, you got to look at, who they beat. So Lakers get up there and they get drugged. So then they get to the finals and they play Miami Heat. Now, of all the teams, Miami Heat was the only team that had shooters. But Miami Heat was an 8 seed that had been dreadful shooting the whole season. They catch fire in the playoffs. They get luck by beating Giannis, who was hurt. They beat the Knicks, and then they beat Boston, who does weird stuff on their own. The point I'm making is they didn't play anybody higher than a 4 seed, right? So, if you was to kind of ask yourself, so what does that mean? When you say that. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the 2014 playoffs. The team that won, San Antonio beat Miami, right? San Antonio was a 1 seed. They played an 8 seed. They played a 5th seed. And then they played the 2 seed to get to the finals, right? Miami was the 2 seed. They played the 6 seed, and then they played the 1 seed to get to the finals. So San Antonio ended up beating Miami, which was a 2 seed, right? Okay. So I'm not going to go year by year. Let's just go 3 years down the block. Okay. So if I'm going 3 years, the Cleveland loses to Golden State, right? Cleveland, in that season, Cleveland was a 2 seed. Golden State was a 1. Golden State played, obviously they beat Portland. They were 8 seed. Then they played the 5th seed. And then they played San Antonio, who was the 2 seed. And then they beat Cleveland, who was the 2 seed. Okay. So let's say I go 3 more years. Let's go, I don't want to use the bubble year. Let's go 2021. 2021, we have Milwaukee beating Phoenix. Milwaukee was the 3 seed. They beat the 6 seed. Then they played Brooklyn, who was the 2 seed. And then they played Atlanta, who was the 5 seed to get in because they had beat Philadelphia, right? So they're the 2 seed. They played Phoenix. Phoenix was the 2. Phoenix played Denver, who was the 3. Phoenix played the Clippers, who was the 4 to get in, and then Milwaukee beats them. So the pattern that I'm speaking of when I look at it is a lot of these teams, you usually are going to see a 2 or 3, 1, 2, or 3 to get to the finals, and you're probably going to see a 1, 2, or 3 on the other hand. It could be a 4. And again, a lot of those seedings, somebody's hurt for duration of, they miss some games, that kind of stuff happens. But for the most part, you're not getting to play a 8th, a 4th, a 7th, and an 8th. I was going back. I couldn't find it. Maybe I missed it. So luck was involved. Now, they did what they needed to do. But now they talk of Denver being a dynasty. They avoided some teams this year. Look, even though Golden State was bad, Golden State has Denver's number, right? So next year is going to be interesting because if you don't have these teams that make this late run and you don't have these people playing these, like it was almost like it was in the cards for these teams to end up where they were, because you had the Lakers beating Memphis, who had all of these issues with Ja and all of this stuff. Right, Memphis is the 2 seed. Memphis gets to play Denver. That's probably a different series. I'm not saying Memphis wins, but that's a different series. Golden State and Sacramento. Golden State has their number, right? So Golden State beats them. Had Golden State not beat them, Sacramento is a team that has a lot of energy, has a lot of great players that can, do some things. Who knows? Who knows what happens in Sacramento? Now, will Denver beat them? Highly likely. But the run is different. It's not as commanding. So that's kind of where I look at it. And whether people feel what I'm saying, it's a lot out there that are talking about the same as I'm talking. And it's not really I'm not wanting to discount what Denver did. It's like, I'm like, hey, I want you to beat the best teams there. I would rather them, they beat the 8 seed, then they beat the 4 seed because that's the way the brackets are held. I would rather them beat the 2 or 3 seed to get to the finals, right? And then on the other side, I'd rather them play the 1, 2, or the 3 seed in that, because the 1 seed would have been Milwaukee. The 2 seed, I think, would have been Boston, and the 3 seed was Philly. So if they play one of those 3 teams, then, and they win through it, then that's kind of the way you want it. Like even when Golden State won their first year, yeah, they won it, but then I'm like, man, Kyrie wasn't there, Kevin Love wasn't there. So yeah, they won, they had to win, but it doesn't feel the same as a competitor. So that's my 2 cents for that. The next thing is there was some head scratching moves by some of these illustrious coaches to me. Now, who am I to question their decision? I'm not a head coach or anything, NBA, all that stuff. But it was odd. Miami makes this big thing about, getting Tyler Hero back, who's their second or third leading scorer, who can create his own shots, knock down buckets. That's what the Heat was missing, because they had these shooters, but these dudes were like, they were missing wide open shots. There weren't a lot of contested shots. They were getting shots they wanted. They just, weren't making them. So Tyler Hero gets cleared for Game 5. They make a thing about it. They talk a lot about it. He didn't play. As far as I track, going into the fourth quarter, he didn't play at all. Why even make that a thing? I get it. It's the gamesmanship. You want them to prepare. But yo, if this is your second or third leading scorer, if he can give you 5 minutes, why not put him in? Who knows what's gonna happen? Unless you weren't being truthful. But it was odd. It was really odd to have him available. This is the last game. It's not like you down you down 2-1. Yo, you don't win. That's it. Which is what happened. You don't give him any minutes. Okay, all right. Well, I don't know. But I'm just kind of like, that seemed odd. And then, with Steve Kerr, I understand the stuff with him and the and Bob Myers weren't seeing eye to eye, and they had their players that they just won a championship with. And this year, you don't play those core players to get those kids. And I say kids, they're young. You don't give those players more playing time throughout the year, and then in the playoffs, you're putting your chips on your old heads, and your old heads need the young heads to step up, but you're not doing it with some of those players. And you have a player that could be a game changer for you in Wiseman, but you don't even use him. Now, I'm not there, so I can't tell you what he saw, but I will tell you this. There were a lot of times where you could hear questions coming from people who are in the same mode, players, analysts, not the pundits, the guys who just talk to be talking, but guys who are in the know. There was some I don't know what's going on. And I really think that has something to do with Myers leaving. He brings all that talent, and Steve was really, and some coaches are like that. What's his name with the Knicks? Goodness, I can't, it'll come to me. But he's like that, where he really relies on 6 or 7 players. He's really bad about playing players. Some coaches are like that. They'll ride 6 or 7 guys when they have 2 or 3 more that can play and that can give minutes. And you figure in the NBA, these are the best of the best. You should be able not put anybody out there to get all of these points, but you should be able to steal a few minutes from guys, that should be able to get you in there. They're professionals. That's what I would say. But when you watch guys play, that some guys don't match up in certain situations. So I get that. But your core doesn't always match up with certain situations, but you play your core, right? It does, your core doesn't match up with some teams. It's a bad matchup, but you still got to play them. So why not steal a few minutes here and there? So I think that whole dynamic, hopefully nothing comes out. People are speculating, but I'm interested to see how Golden State, what they do in the summer and how they play next year, because you had some guys who were very pivotal in them winning, and they took a step back. So, but we'll see. All right, that's all for my things on my mind. Okay, so let me get to my basketball training ideology. The term I'm going to talk about today is called ice. What does ice mean? No, it's not go to the ice box and get you some ice cubes. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Ice is a term used to defend a pick and roll, in which the defender doesn't allow the ball handler to use the screen and forces them to the sideline. So let me paint a picture. Let's say you're on the right wing, okay, not at the top of the key, but you're on the wing, or the 45 as they call it, but you're on the wing. You're on the right wing, okay. Ball handler, guard has the ball, and the screener, let's say it's a big, comes from the elbow or the free throw line, comes over to try to set a screen, so now the ball handler can dribble towards the middle of the court, maybe for a shot, maybe to pick and roll and drop the ball down to the big who's rolling to the rim. Who knows? Okay. What some teams will do is they will call ice, which means in any time the ball is on the wing or in a corner or somewhere there, and they're trying to run a screen and roll back to the middle, the defender who's guarding the ball will jump higher on the screen to not allow him or her to use the screen. This action will force the ball handler to possibly go back way up, which now they can't use the screen, or go towards the sideline, which is, only a fourth of the court at that point, which makes it a little bit harder to operate. Okay. So I hope that visual help you. And you see a lot of teams do it. They don't ice in every situation. They don't use that. Some tend to use it there. Now, if you have a team that never likes to use a pick and roll, you try to ice everything, but you can't because guards are really good and savvy about using it. Even if you're trying to ice it on that side, it could backfire on you, but you have everything in place. Okay, so that's what ice means. It's a term to defend the pick and roll in which you don't allow the ball handler to use the pick and roll. You force them to the sideline, okay, where you could have help and you've actually shrank the court. They don't have a lot of options and a lot of room to play with. Okay, so that's the basketball term for today. I'm really liking what I'm liking more with the basketball term is trying to take the terminology, the definition that they have, and putting it into English for us people to understand. Because I'm looking at it and I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm reading it and it's like, yo, but I know what it means. But when you read it, it sounds confusing. So I'm really enjoying it. All right, so let me get into conversation. This was a conversation I had with someone. Look, we had a really good year. If you wanted to count the number of players that were seniors that we were training on boys and girls side, that got offers, that signed and stuff. So, shout out to every last one of those kids that will be continuing to play on all levels. So we had a very successful year. And one of the parents was reaching out, because they listened to the podcast, and they was like, yo, I really enjoyed what you were talking about. Is there a way that you can, talk about offers and understanding offers that you get, and not every offer is for everybody? Well, I agree wholeheartedly with the person. And the funniest thing about that was I had covered this in sometimes we'll do what I call what do I call it? Like a college advisory thing. And basically all I do is I just, talk to parents about college offers, the stuff that you need to do if you're trying to play college ball, from offers, from how do I say it? The offers, if you're going to get an offer, what you're looking at, if you're going to be playing, the different ways that you want to try to get into school, because a lot of parents don't understand all the information you need to know. Some parents don't even know NAIA, what that is about. So we do a little seminar where we try to explain everything to them and help them understand. So the conversation was just about getting offers. Not getting offers shouldn't be the goal. Not every kid can use offers given. The family might not be able to afford what the scholarship doesn't cover. So, and that's part of what we discuss, that I discuss with parents when we do the college advisory seminar. So it made me want to say, okay, you know what, maybe I'll bring this out in this podcast. So basically what the parent was talking about was, when you get an offer from a school, depending on that school, it could be a full ride. Now, full ride can mean different things, but generally what a full ride is that college is going to cover pretty much every expense. You're going to be able to go to school for free. You don't have to pay tuition, stuff like that. And if there is some little amount that has to be covered, well, you're usually going to be able to get whatever is left covered by some type of, school grants, Pell Grants and stuff. But then there are some schools that will give you what they call a partial. And okay, so I don't want to make it sound like a dirty little secret, but I mean, it's reality. Some schools aren't funded and don't have the funding, so they might take one whole scholarship that would pay for one kid to come there for free, they might chop that one full scholarship up to get 3, 4, or 5 kids in. Okay. Now those kids, they can pay up to a certain amount, but those kids will have to pay whatever the balance is. So this allows them to stretch it, stretch that dollar. Okay. What I explain to parents and what I'm talking about is just knowing which schools you can go to that you can afford. So there's this thing called FAFSA, and don't ask me what it stands for, because right now it is blocking my mind. But basically, your FAFSA, what you do is you're basically, entering in all your information, household, how much income and stuff you make and everything, kids and stuff. And it gives you like a number, and it shows you, okay, you will qualify for this much money. So let's say the kid qualifies, they'll be able to get a grant or something for $10,000, right, per year. Okay, so if it covers $10,000, then if you go to a school and they're offering you a partial ride, but you have to pay $6,000 out of pocket, then you're covered, right? But then there are a lot of schools, Division III schools. So Division III schools do not offer athletic scholarships. They do academic, which is why you need to have a high GPA. The higher your GPA, the more money you can get, the more coverage you can get. But you're still going to pay out of pocket at some point. It could be a lot, it could be a little. But then you have certain private schools. Private schools, or some, Christian schools out there that, have programs. And those schools generally, if they don't give them a lot. So you have to be able to come up with money. And sometimes these schools, to go to that school for a year could be $50,000 to $70,000. If they cover maybe 10, you still have, $50,000 to $70,000, right? So you have to pay that. And some kids and parents, will talk with the coaches, get, everything's good, and then they get the offer and stuff, and they're excited, and they take the offer before they even do their due diligence, right? So what I've counseled tons of parents with this is a lot of them, when you're on that phone conversation, the first phone conversation you have with them, you need to ask those questions. Because here's another thing that people don't think about. Out-of-state tuition is a lot more expensive if you're from out of state. Now, Texas kids should get in-state tuition in Texas, but normally they do it for states bordering Texas. So if you go to a school in New Mexico, you should be able to get in-state tuition. In Oklahoma, Louisiana and stuff. But if you're trying to go to a school in Arizona, unless they're going to give you a full ride, you're going to pay out-of-state tuition for that first year because you'll be a resident, you get your driver's license and stuff there. After that year, you can qualify for in-state tuition, if you stay. California, it's a ways away, and their system's different. So you have to understand the place that you're going to. And there are so many schools that want kids that can play, but they understand what they don't offer, right? So when you're getting offers, you do need to find out, number one, if it's going to be a full ride. If it's a full ride and you don't have to come out of pocket for anything, obviously you just got to make sure you do paperwork, everything works out, you're good. That doesn't happen for everybody. If it's not a full offer, you need to look to see, number one, how much they're going to want you to pay out of pocket. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, you need to look and see if your FAFSA that you have, how much it covers. And whatever the gap it is, they might have a way for you to make up that extra money, right? You might be able to get a part-time job or something. Some schools have sponsors who will bring that kid in, let that kid live with them and stuff, sponsor, the kid. So you don't have to pay anything. Now, obviously there are rules and regulations and stuff like that, but I've heard of it. I've heard of it happening, So those are things that can happen in some really good schools. Not some. A lot of schools do their best to try to help the situation because they know they're kind of fighting uphill with the fact that a lot of these schools can't offer. They can offer, but it's only so much they can do. So, my advice to juniors that are going to be seniors or that are technically seniors now because school is out, you really need to start doing your homework now. Don't wait until January, February to start trying to do all of this stuff because then it's a lot more stress and rushed. But if you do your homework and do some of the stuff now, you'll be prepared. I've prepared a lot of parents that have come back and told me, we so appreciate what you did telling us this and that. It helped out tremendously. I've never had a parent come back and say, yo, you don't know what the hell you was talking about, man. That you were completely off. Because what I tell people is, if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does. I don't have to know everything, but I can find the information by calling people in the know. So that's what I hang my hat on. Of course, I could do my own recruiting service, but at the same time, that's not what I'm trying to do. So that's pretty much all that is with that situation. All right. So last thing I'm going to talk about is how many players should you have on a team? Developmental, competitive. A different philosophy. Some coaches like to have a certain amount on their roster, just in case. Obviously, it's great for practice. If you're going to practice, you want to be able to have, your kids go up and down against each other. So having 7 to 8 kids, don't always work the way you want it to. You can't practice and run your offense and stuff like that. Unless you have coaches and stuff, you can simulate a practice. So I would say you want to have 10 players, maybe 12. And it depends. If you have a developmental team, everybody should be playing, a good amount of minutes. So you want it to have at least 10 players. You don't want to have 15 to 18 players. I've seen some teams, they had more players on their team than there were in the stands watching them play. Players aren't going to get a good run. So with developmental, I would say an ideal number would be 10 to 12. Now, why am I going through this is because I got asked a question. Somebody was looking at starting a team. Another person was on a team, but they were trying to understand why their kid wasn't playing, and there are other dynamics, I guess. And I try to encourage them to talk to the coach. And then some parents will get on his team thinking they're developmental. Then they find out that it's not a developmental, it's really a competitive. And competitive teams play differently than developmental. So you got to make sure you know that. But generally speaking, if a team has more than 12 players, you got to kind of ask, what they're looking at. Are they playing all of them? And, if they're competitive, they're not playing 15 kids. They're probably playing 8 or 9 at the most. So not everybody is going to get to play in some situations. You're going to have to earn your playing time. But you want to make sure you know how many kids are on the team. So, if it's a competitive team, 8, I'd say maybe 10. If their coach depends on how they run their practice. If they like to practice and within their practice they're running the offense and they're playing offense and defense and stuff, you got to have at least 10 kids to play, right, to practice. Because if not, you're going to be doing a lot of 3-on-3s and possibly 4-on-4s. And those are good as well, but you want to have that 5-on-5. So I would always suggest, maximum of 12, I guess, depending on what you're doing, a minimum of 8 if you don't need to practice and get up and down against each other. Let's say you got 2 or 3 good coaches. You get 8. 2 of those coaches can be the other players, and, you can simulate a good practice. But it's good to have enough to practice on depending on what you're doing. So that's what I would suggest, because a lot of times parents, a lot of times are new to understanding the basketball and stuff, and they go to these teams, and these teams tell them. Some of these teams just tell them different, tell them whatever they want them to hear, and they're not being as honest as they need to be. And then season goes by, and there's frustration on all parts. Now, is it all on the coaches? Absolutely not. Some parents need to understand where their kid is. And if you don't understand where your kid is, you're going to be hopping from team to team to team. If you go to 3 different teams, you're a nomad. That's what I call them. You're a nomad. And if you go to 3 different teams because you took your kid off because your kid wasn't playing, obviously it's probably something with your kid. Your kid might not be good enough. It might not be working on their game. So there are a lot of reasons for why stuff doesn't work, but it's usually within the same, general instances. So you have to really look at where your kid is playing, and do your due diligence. If your kid's not that good, don't put them on a competitive team. Put them on a developmental team, and make sure that team allows all of their kids to play, a lot of minutes, because you're trying to develop them. Kids won't learn anything by sitting on the bench, and there are some coaches that will tell you that, oh, you're gonna learn by sitting down and watch. No, you don't. That's something that I could never agree with, because if you're sitting on the bench, you're watching, you're seeing things through the coach's eyes on the bench. But in a game, there's a speed in which you need to know and understand how to play. You need to make those mistakes. So I'll never buy into you're going to learn more by sitting on the bench. Now, when you learn some things, if you're hurt, obviously if you're hurt, you're going to learn because you can't play. If you're trying to learn the offense and the coach says, I need you to just pay attention to what he does because this is your position you're going to be learning. Okay, I can get some of that. But sitting a kid for a whole season and saying that he's got to learn, he's going to learn by sitting the whole season. I'm not buying that. So for you coaches out there that believe that, don't bring that shit to me, because I don't believe it. I think it's a bunch of bull, and I think it's just a method in which, there's exerting control. You can't show me the one situation where you had a kid that didn't play an entire year, sitting on the bench watching that entire year, that next season that player was a better player because he or she sat out the entire year. No, that kid can play, and partial, I'll agree. You can let him learn some, but you got to let him play. You got to let him play. You got to let them make those mistakes. I'm an experienced guy, so maybe that's what it is. And I'm probably going to have some coaches say, no, this is what we're doing and this is why. I'll listen. I don't think you can, because I've tried to look at different ways to understand it. I don't think there's a rationale behind a kid sitting an entire season and not playing when he or she could play, but they sat up there and said that they learned. Nah, I'm not buying it. So we can agree to disagree when it comes to that. All right, well, that's going to be the end of this segment. But, for my bonus content, things on my mind, I'm going to cover, Scan and Go app. Do y'all have a Scan and Go app? I'm going to talk about that. And then asking if your child is playing in the right position on the team. Okay? 2 things I'm going to cover. The Scan and Go app is going to be legendary conversation, because I got questions. I really got questions. But I'm going to end it. I appreciate, y'all staying with me, and I'm happy to be back. I never left, but I just couldn't do an episode. So with that, I'm going to end it like I always do and say, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.